And tonight is our college kickoff. It's geared towards juniors because we're talking about the college search process and admissions process. But we welcome everybody who's here. We're glad to see you. And tonight's presentation will be by Jan Combs. She's from MEFA, which is Massachusetts Educational Finance Authority.
Very good.
And if you have any questions after tonight's presentation, please feel free to contact your student's counselor, and we can help you out. We're happy to get the process started with you all. Thank you for coming.
So I can take this off. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. Everyone hear me okay in the back? Yes, okay, terrific. So again, my name is Jan Combs. I am here representing MEFA, which is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. And we are a nonprofit entity located right in Boston, where we've been for over 30 years. And essentially, MEFA was created to help families plan for college through saving for college, through 529 plans, as well as prepaid tuition plans. And we also have a number of different low-interest loan programs. So that's why we exist, to help you plan, save, and pay for college. And we do a ton of these community events all through the year at local high schools. So tonight, we're going to talk a lot about how to plan for the college admissions process. I'm going to give you a lot of information in about a 45-minute time frame. If you have questions after I'm done with my presentation, I'll be happy to take those questions. Okay, before I begin the presentation, I just want to make you aware of one really cool service from MEFA. They have a nice kind of educational email service. If you're interested in partaking in that, you can just include your email on the seminar presentation, evaluation that you'll complete at the end of the evening. And that way you can get pertinent updates from MEFA kind of as you go through this entire college financing process that is available to you. So tonight we're going to talk about a variety of things in our seminar. Certainly current trends that we're seeing in admissions. We'll go through that so you can kind of put this whole process in perspective before we dive into the details. We'll also talk about how students can work on developing their college list, how to approach campus visits. We will spend a majority of time on the application process, things that you need to know and your child needs to know in order to apply for admission. We'll touch upon financial aid at the end, as well as some available free resources to you. So that's what we're going to really kind of focus on this evening during the seminar. So starting with trends in admissions, sometimes it's nice to hear about what's going on in the admissions world so you can kind of put things in perspective before you dive into the college planning process. So certainly these are the things that we're seeing in the college admissions process. So one very big trend is that more and more students are applying to college early. So using one of the early action processes, we are finding that students are applying to a greater number of schools. The national average is 9. So 9 schools per student is the national average as of last year. Certainly colleges, many colleges, not all, but many colleges are looking for students to demonstrate interest, to indicate interest. And that can be done many ways. Yes, of course, applying indicates interest, but way before that, colleges are looking for students to come on visits, to attend informational sessions and open houses, and maybe like them on Facebook or Skype them or attend an online interview, things like that. So colleges in many cases are tracking how students indicate their interest, and will keep a record of the times that they reach out and make contact with them. So that's very important these days in the admissions process. Certainly admissions to public institutions has become very, very competitive in the last number of years. Last year in the Boston Globe, they reported an article about UMass Amherst specifically, how the average GPA 2 years ago for UMass Amherst was 3.6. It was up to 3.8 last year. And they're accepting fewer and fewer students because it is becoming more and more competitive. So even our own state flagship institution is becoming more competitive in this admissions process. Certainly colleges are reporting that it's becoming more of a parent-driven process as well. And whether that's good or bad, I'm not going to philosophize about that during the seminar, but what colleges are reporting, that parents are becoming more and more involved in the admissions process. And certainly the last two things, rise of social media certainly has become very important in the admissions process, certainly for very good reasons. Students can find out much more easily about colleges, through Skype, through Facebook, through Twitter, through online videos. Students can really research colleges much more easily because of social media, so that's all good. The thing that I like to caution students about is be careful when you're out there on social media. You are now in the college process. You'll be moving forward and applying to colleges, and at any time, if a college wants to kind of check out your social media profiles to get a little idea of what you're all about, you're out there, so be careful. I always recommend that students maybe, use your favorite search engine, put your name out there, and see what comes up. How do your social media profiles look? Do they look in a way that a college would not be offended, would still be interested in you? So things to think about. Is Boston University going to sit down and look at 50,000 applicants' social media profiles? No, of course not. But certainly for maybe some scholarship programs or more competitive smaller schools, they could be out there looking at your profile. So students, just be careful what you're putting out there. And lastly, the last trend is globalization of education. More and more international students, as you may very well know, are coming to the United States in search of seats at our colleges here. A higher and higher percent of seats are being taken up each and every year by students from other countries. All right, so hopefully that puts a few things in perspective for you. So let's first talk about developing your list. So at this point in time, juniors in high school should be starting about really if they haven't already started their list, they should be thinking about starting their list and really want to have that list kind of fine-tuned and finalized by the end of junior year or by the end of the summer. Okay, so how do students develop that list? Fortunately, Hingham High School has probably one of the best college planning platforms available, which is Naviance. So I'm sure you've all been on that platform already with your children. So your students really should use Naviance as their main place to search for colleges. They can go into Naviance, they can sort on colleges by geographic regions, by majors, as well as by the size of the school and the location of the school. So urban, suburban, rural, things like that. So students should really use Naviance as their main planning tool. And a lot goes into developing their list. Certainly they want to have a school that's going to fit their needs. So it doesn't have the academic program that they want to lead to their future career aspirations. But it also needs to fit the student as far as their geographic preferences, whether or not they want to be in a sorority or another type of activity or club. And it also needs to be the right size for them in the right type of location. So those are the different things that students should be thinking about, not just major, but a combination of all those different parameters. And they can use Naviance and sort by all of their items and come up with a list that matches their needs. Now this slide here shows just when we're talking about developing a list, we want to make sure that the list is very balanced. And what I mean by balanced is, obviously students should have their dream schools. If they're interested in applying to very selective colleges, they absolutely should have those on their list. But it should always be balanced with schools that we consider to be target schools or just right schools, and also safety schools or no problem schools. So a student should never have 10 Ivy League schools or 10 highly selective schools on their list, even if they're the very best student, they always want to have a wide range of colleges on their list. We typically say between 7 and 10 colleges would be an appropriate list, maybe a couple in the very challenging category, a couple in the no problem category, and then the majority in the middle there, in that target area, in the just right area, okay? Remember again that the average number of schools that students apply for on a national level is 9. Okay, so that 7 to 10 number really is a good starting point for most students. Okay, this slide just shows your plan for the future. That is a similar list generation and college planning tool, similar to Naviance that MIFA uses and kind of houses. But since your students are here, they're going to stick with Naviance and use that as their main college planning tool. Okay. So obviously students can use Naviance. They can put in the different criteria that's very important to them and come up with a good solid list. Most students are probably going to start with a list of 20 or 30 colleges, and then over time they will narrow that down after they dig in and do some additional research. And one of the ways to do that research is to visit campuses, and certainly that can be done informally as well as formally. So on an informal basis, that's when you might be driving by a college, you might be there for a play, for a basketball game, for whatever reason. You can pretty much drive into 98% of campuses. You can just drive right in, drive around, park, walk your car, pop into the admissions offices or the student center. That's a great way of really getting a sense of how the student feels on a campus. Is the size right? Is the locality right? It's a great way to really just get comfortable with being on a college campus. So I highly recommend college visits, whether it's an informal visit, just kind of driving through, or whether it's a more formal visit. And you're going to see February vacation week, April vacation week, summers, as well as a lot of the weekends. You can schedule formal visits at colleges, really starting now. And when you're going to go and have an official tour with maybe a student or an admissions representative, and then attend an information session. So that's also another great way of being able to ask questions and evaluate the school as well. And of course show that you're interested in the school and indicate your interest. So I can't stress enough how important it is to get on a college campus. 30 plus years ago, I applied to college, never even visited a campus, applied for a bunch, got in, and ended up going to BU. And it all worked out great. But I tell you, I was a very shy individual from a tiny town, rural. So here I was, August, I get dropped off at the corner of Comm Ave and Babcock Street with the laundry basket, and you're supposed to go in, and I was absolutely shell-shocked. I probably shouldn't have been at an enormous, sprawling, urban institution, because it just wasn't me. All worked out, I lived to tell, it was all good in the end. But I can't ever forget, and it's been over 30 years, what that feeling was like of being in a place where I wasn't comfortable being. So I tell that story because it's so very important for kids to just be out there and on campuses. If they think they want big, we'll have them walk down Comm Ave or have them walk down Huntington Ave, and, where Northeastern is. They might love it, or they might say, this is a little much. Or the same thing goes for a kid who thinks they want a tiny school, like a small gated community. Have them go to some of those colleges and see if that is really what they want. So the point is, get them out there, informally, formally, however you do it. I'm not saying you have to jump on planes and trains and travel all over the place, but if your child, thinks they want a big school in California, just make sure they get on a big school campus here so they get a feel for it. Okay, can't stress enough. So that's a great way to learn about colleges, learn about fit, learn about how you feel, because that is a very big part of the admissions process. The other way to check out schools, of course, is through some of the college fairs. There's a national college fair in Boston that is coming up in May. The school might very likely be running field trips themselves If not, certainly families can go into the college fair. It's Sunday, May 22nd, and Monday, May 23rd. Okay, right in Boston at the convention center there. There will be thousands and thousands of colleges there with admissions representatives dying to talk with students. So another great way to hear about schools and learn about what they have to offer for you. Okay, so let's talk about the college application process. So we'll talk about timing first, and then we'll talk about all the different nitty-gritty pieces of the admissions process. So as far as application options, there are many. So regular decision is when typically the deadlines are usually around January 1st, December 15th, somewhere around there, sometimes as late as February 1st. But it's one large pool of applications coming in. They all come in at the same time, and then typically they're all given their decision late March, early April. So that's regular decision. Every college has a regular decision process. There's also some early admissions processes, and those include early action and early decision. The timing of those is very similar. It's in the fall of senior year. The most popular deadline for early decision and early action is November 1st. I've seen a few earlier and a few later, but the main deadline is usually November 1st. Individuals who apply through early decision or early action by November 1st, typically, will get a decision from the admissions office prior to the holiday break. So your child's going to know before that winter break whether they've been admitted or whether they've been deferred to the regular admissions process, okay? As you heard me say before in the trend, when I was talking about admissions trends, more and more students are applying through these early processes, primarily early action. And more colleges are filling a larger percentage of their seats through the early admissions processes, okay? There is a big difference between early decision and early action. Early decision is binding, and students are allowed to apply to one college through an early decision process. If they are admitted to that college, it's essentially binding. They're expected to commit to that college. And if they have any other admissions applications out there in an early action or any other process, they are expected to cancel those and withdraw those. Okay, so early decision is not for everyone. It's typically for a student who might have a burning desire to go to one school and one school only, and the cost is not a consideration. Okay? Early action, on the other hand, has that same early timing. Students can apply to as many colleges as they wish to through early action, find out early, but they still don't need to make their decision and tell the college and deposit until May 1st. So they have that benefit of finding out early, but being able to apply for financial aid and compare award letters and potentially negotiate and things of that nature, okay? So the processes are the same as far as timing, but early action is a lot less restrictive than early decision, okay? And then, of course, there's rolling admission, and what that means is colleges will just continue to accept applications until their seats and programs are full. And then open admission would really refer to our community college system, where you really can apply at any time and then enroll as long as there's room in the classes. Okay? So that's a little bit of information about the timing. Now let's talk about how to actually apply to these colleges. So certainly most four-year colleges specifically will have a college application, potentially additional application forms from the school. Of course, your high school transcript is a given. And then many are going to require standardized test scores, letters of recommendation, an activity list or resume, certainly a personal essay or personal statement, and some, not tons, but some will require some sort of interview. So let's go through all of the pieces of the application process now in detail. Actually, I'm going to go back to the application type. So every college will require you to complete, obviously, an application as the first step by a stated deadline. So the Common Application is the most popular online college application at this time. There's over 400 colleges that use the Common Application. It allows the student to go on, create an account, and answer a lot of questions about themselves, put in their essay, okay, and then send it to a multitude of different schools all at once. So it really does streamline the process. Common App will become available right around January 1st for the next academic year. So at any point around that time, your child can go on, set up a user account, password, and start inputting their information. Most likely, your child will be applying to at least a few schools that utilize the Common Application, so that probably is a word that you'll start hearing in your household. There's also something called the Universal College App. About 80 colleges or so, many in this area, that use that. Similar concept to the Common App. You go on one time, put in your information, and send it to a multitude of schools. So it really does streamline the process, but again, it's only about 80 colleges versus several hundred for the Common App. Colleges that use neither one of those, most likely, will have their own application portal right on their website. Last year, most of our state schools here in Massachusetts had their own online application on their website. About 4 or 5 of them have moved to the Common App, so you will see that. The other ones would have their own application right on their website. The Coalition application is new. Has anyone heard of that? The Coalition app? Really? Okay. Brand new. It's just kind of opening now. It's about 83 colleges that have bound together and created this new application called the Coalition application. So if your child has applying to one of those 83, you may or may not see this application as well. As of right now, since the Coalition app is just coming about, those colleges that utilize the Coalition app will also continue to utilize the Common application, at least for this year. So your child will have that option of using either one, okay? And then paper apps, there's a handful of schools out there that still use paper, so you might see that, but most likely not. Okay, so that's the application piece. Mostly it's done online, and the Common App is really the most popular one that's out there now. Okay, so every college is going to require the transcript. And the transcript is still the central document for admissions committees to look at when they're reviewing your child's eligibility for their school. So colleges are all going to ask for a transcript from the guidance department, and they'll upload that right through Naviance here at some point. So they'll usually send, upload it depending on when the student's applying. It could be the end of junior year, or it could be the end of first quarter, senior year, and they'll continue to upload records through senior year as colleges need them. Okay, so pretty straightforward process. Colleges will look at the rigor of the courses. They'll look at whether they were college level, whether they were honors level, whether they were AP level, whether the student did dual enrollment or any other special programs. And they are primarily going to be looking at that transcript to see the rigor of the courses. They will certainly look at the GPA that's provided by the school, and if the school provides class rank, they will also look at that. But in most cases, colleges are going to look at the transcript, they're going to recalculate the GPA based on whatever parameters they have, okay? But that's still a central document for the admissions process. And of course, standardized tests. I will say there's about 840 colleges in the country that do not require SAT scores or make them optional. So if your child's someone who stresses out about tests, or maybe has phenomenal grades but just doesn't test well, please know it's not the end all, okay? Again, there's 840 colleges out there. Stonehill, Providence College, WPI, some really good schools that do not require standardized tests. So just know that, just to know, there's a lot of options, okay? Here it is, fairtest.org is where that list of those 840 colleges are. You can click on the state that you're interested in and see all the colleges that make SAT either not required or test optional, okay? So the other 3,200 colleges out there will require some sort of standardized tests. So that could be the SAT or the ACT. And those are definitely looked at equally at colleges. Students do not need to take both. Some will choose to take both just to see how they do, because the tests are a little bit different. But if your child's someone who doesn't like to do a ton of testing, don't feel like they have to take both. They could take the SAT twice, or they could take the ACT twice, or if they would like, they could take each of them one time, and then maybe the one that they did the best on a second time, okay? So lots of options. I did put in the dates here for you. So for current juniors, the next test is March 5th. And so the registration deadline for that is February 5th, okay? So you have just a few weeks if you want to register for the March 5th test. If that doesn't work for your student, then there's one on May 7th and June 4th as well. Just keep in mind you usually need to register 1 month in advance. It's about $58 for the SAT. That includes the writing test, okay? And that also includes 4, quote, free score reports as well, okay? So if we definitely recommend that the student take the SAT at least 1 time in the junior year. If you want to do it twice and you can fit it into your schedule, great. You could do it once in the junior year and then once in the senior year early on in either October or November, so you're meeting all of those early college deadlines, okay? All right. And everyone, I'm sure, is aware that the high school did PSATs in October, and the scores came out in January. And those PSATs, that was the new PSAT, which really aligns with the new SAT, that will start to be given in March. And those scores that they got on the PSAT, they can go online to the College Board account, put in their activation code, and get a nice little summary of the questions that they got right, which ones they got wrong, and they can really use that PSAT report to study for any areas of weakness and prepare for that either March, May, or June test, okay? If students haven't been able to go on, just check with your guidance department. For that, it's very easy and straightforward once you have your activation code. It's a great tool. I also have a junior at home, and so I printed out the report so that he knows where he needs to focus, and hopefully he will. Okay, so standardized testing, a big part of it, but certainly not the end-all be-all. Here are the ACT tests as well. So the ones that are open now would be the April 9th would be the next one that you can register for without registering late. There is one in February, but the deadline's passed. April 9th, the deadline's March 4th, okay? And again, colleges will accept either SAT or ACT, okay? Okay, so the next thing would be the activity list or resume. Now you will find on the Common application, on the Coalition application, and on the Universal app, you will find that they have kind of built-in activity lists and built-in kind of resume makers. So as the student goes in, they're actually inputting information in from their resume. So there's no separate resume for schools that use those 3 platforms. You will see for schools that use their own website, like some of our state schools and some of the other schools that use their own website. In some cases, they want the student to upload an activity list or a resume. So something to think about. I know that in Naviance, they can make their resumes and activity lists so easy enough to do. In some cases, they do need to upload it separately, though. All right, essays, the dreaded essay. So you will find at most colleges, especially four-year colleges, at both the publics and the private, that the essay is also a very, very, very important piece. Essentially, it allows the student to tell something different about themselves. So it's not just about the numbers. Obviously, the colleges will have the GPA, have the transcript, have the test scores. The essay kind of goes beyond that and enables the student to give a kind of a third dimension about themselves, maybe share something that's meaningful, share something that isn't going to show up in the regular admissions application. So a very important piece of the application process. Here are some examples. These are the essay props from the Common Application from this year. And I'll read a few of them to you, just so you get a sense of the types of essays. So I picked the Common Applications only because that's the most popular admissions online application platform. So I picked these from that platform just to give you an idea. So first one, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. And again, these are for the Common Application essays only, and it's a 650 essay limit, okay? And it's for the main application that students put into the Common Application that goes to all of the different colleges that they're applying to through Common App, okay? So that's one such example. Another one, the lessons we take from failure can be fundamental to later success. Recount an incident or time when you experienced failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from that experience? Another common one. Another one, reflect on a time when you challenged a belief or idea. What prompted you to act, and would you make the same decision again? And then there's two more that certainly you can read on your own. So they have 5 options. The student can pick only one, and the essay cannot be tailored to a specific school. It must be a generic 650 word or less that will go to all of the colleges that they apply to on the Common Application, okay? So this gives you a sense of the types of essay questions that your child will need to prepare for. Certainly on the Universal app, they have similar ones, as well as on school-specific. They will have very similar types of essays. Also ones that are very common are, why Bridgewater State, why XYZ College, how can you contribute to our college campus? Those are the types of essays that students will need to prepare for. So these are the current ones for the Common App. The last 3 years, I have to say, there's been very little change. The essay prompts have stayed very similar over the last 3 years. I just heard this morning that these are expected to change. Okay, so what I will say, please don't have your kids start to write one of these essays, okay? Because they may very well change, okay? They should look at it, start maybe gathering some ideas, things like that. But wait until the Common Application essay prompts are published for next year's application, the real one that your child will need to do. I'm told it will be in about a month or so. So they have plenty of time. It's only January. So this is to give you an idea. As soon as they're published, then absolutely they can pick one of those prompts and work with their, maybe their English teacher or someone else before they leave for the summer. Okay, so just wait till the new ones come out. I hear they're gonna change. Okay, so letters of recommendation. Most colleges will need at least one, and there are definitely several out there that will want 2 or 3. If your child's applying through the Common Application, the guidance counselor is required to submit a letter of recommendation for your child. It's kind of all part of the application process. It's fairly automatic as long as your child prompts their counselor by sending them an electronic invitation through the portal to do so. So it's all kind of included. So the guidance counselor will automatically do one for all Common Applications. And then some colleges will also require it through either the Universal app or their own. So the guidance counselor is a pretty important person in this process, and they tend to write a lot of letters of recommendation. Now, in addition, you always need a letter of recommendation from at least one academic teacher, okay? We typically recommend that you ask a teacher that had you in the junior year okay? Or maybe in the sophomore year, okay? Really not a great idea to ask a senior year teacher who might have only had you for a month, okay? Especially if you're applying early action. So think carefully, students, about who you're asking. You want to ask a teacher from a core subject, usually, preferably science, math, English. Unless you're going to be a history major or a political science major, then certainly you could ask your history teacher as well, okay? Or if you're going to study foreign language, of course, ask your foreign language teacher. But always ask somebody from a core subject, at least one. I recommend asking two, because there are a number of schools that will want two academic references as well. The other thing I recommend, juniors who are in the audience, ask those teachers before you leave for the summer, okay? Especially if you know someone's retiring, especially if you know that it's a teacher who's very popular that's going to be asked to write 1 million letters. The sooner you ask them, the better they can do in writing your letter, okay? Some teachers and some counselors will want you to give them a little brag sheet or biographical sheet so they can kind of incorporate some information into the letter. So be expected for that. But definitely think about who you want to ask. Again, preferably someone from junior year or someone from sophomore year, okay? A teacher who knows you well, that's the key. Not a teacher who's just gonna say, oh, they were in my class, they got an A, they were a hard worker. Well, we know you got an A because we're reading your transcript, okay? We want you to ask a teacher who might know you also on a personal level, who's not only gonna say what a great student you were and how bright you were, but maybe how you added to the class, how you added to the community. Maybe you mentored the kid who sat next to you. Maybe you were a tutor. Maybe you struggled in a class, but because you persevered and didn't get up, you didn't give up, then you made it, and you ended up getting a good grade. So a teacher who knows you well, that can talk about maybe another dimension of you that we're not going to see on the transcript. Okay, makes sense? All right, so let me say a word about essays and letters of recommendation before we move on. So certainly, we all know the transcript, the test scores, it's a big piece of the admissions process, right? But what about, the school has 100 kids who all have awesome grades, awesome test scores. But they only have 20 seats. How are they going to make those decisions about what 20 great kids to pick out of those 100 great kids, all with solid scores? That's when that essay and those letters of recommendation really come into play and become very, very, very important. The essay is the student's opportunity to shine, to tell something special about themselves that maybe the admissions committee didn't see on paper, okay? So the essay is very important. I can't stress that enough. Students need to take a lot of time when they're writing their essays and hopefully show it to at least 3 other individuals who will sit back and kind of give you their point of view, and maybe a little critique, suggestions, things like that. Essay is extremely important, as are the teacher recommendations, where that teacher who knows you really well can tell something special about you that might not be in the admissions application, okay? So those 2 components, the essay and the teacher recommendations, are very, very, very important. I sat on an admissions committee for 5 years at a very selective college in Cambridge. And how do you think we decided who to fill, who to bring in, right? I mean, they're all brilliant. They all have high scores and, amazing achievements and great transcripts. We'd be looking so carefully at those essays. Does the student have passion? Does it connect with what they want to do? And what did this recommender say? Wow, look what they said about this person. So those are the types of things that will come into committee. It's those essays and those teacher recommendations. And that's why I take just a couple extra minutes to kind of harp on that, because it is so important to the admissions process. So students, as you struggle over the 5th version of your essay, just know that you're doing it for good reason, and thank your teachers and your counselors who are writing your letters of recommendation. All right. Okay, so last piece would be interviews. So certainly there's a number of colleges that don't offer any sort of interviews. Of course, Boston University, they're not going to interview 50,000 people. Your larger universities, you're just not going to see that they're going to even offer interviews. A number of colleges will offer them maybe as an option, so you can certainly use it as a time to show another wonderful side of yourself. You can also use it as a time to kind of interview the college, to see whether you really do have a good fit with the college. It's a great way of you evaluating the college as well as they evaluate you for their college. So it kind of works both ways. So there's definitely optional interviews out there. And then I would say a small percent of colleges will actually have mandatory interviews. Obviously, if it's mandatory, you have to go. Oftentimes, though, it's through Skype or on the phone or through an alumni representative. So they usually give you lots of different options. And then if it's not mandatory, but they give you an option or they invite you for an interview, I always recommend take that interview offer. Okay, if you have the ability to interview with a college that's offering to interview you, then absolutely take advantage of that option. Wonderful opportunity for you to learn more about the college and for you to really sell yourself and shine in person to someone that's interviewing you. Okay? And of course, here's some good tips. There's some great information on the MIFA website. We've got some interactive little interview snippets that you can look at. We have a nice list of interview questions because a lot of them are very open-ended, you'll find when you go to these interviews. So certainly go to the MIFA website, prepare for your interview. It's always fun if you can work with a peer or a parent or someone else to kind of practice some different questions. So definitely do that if you're going for an interview. Know why you want to go to that college. That's one of the questions they're always going to ask you. Well, why this one? Why ABC school? And you want to say more than, well, because they offer psychology. You definitely want to have some good information about the school, why it's a good fit for you, okay? And obviously, as I mentioned before, you can use the interview time to evaluate them. So ask your questions. And of course, relax, be yourself, and, dress kind of nice. Not too fancy, but, dress presentable. That's important as well. All right, so interviews, that's kind of the last piece. So we know that we have the application, we've got the transcript, which you'll get from the guidance office here. And then, of course, we mentioned standardized test scores, essays, letter of recommendation, resumes, activity lists, and interviews. So those are all pieces of the puzzle, okay? So what I always recommend to students is, as you develop your list in Naviance, you'll be able to add schools to your My College list in Naviance, and then you'll be able to note the different deadlines associated with each of the admissions processes in Naviance. As you're noting that information, also note the different components of each application process that you need to do, and also note the financial aid deadlines as well, because that's just another piece of the process. We'll talk about that at the end, but I do recommend using your online Naviance tool to really keep track of all the different deadlines. The last thing you want to do is be late on an admissions application, okay? If the online tool isn't your thing, then just do an old-fashioned spreadsheet, write in Excel, and keep track of all the different deadlines, okay? All right, so hopefully everyone will apply either through early action or early decision in the fall, or through regular decision. And then of course you'll get hopefully lots of admissions acceptance letters. So you can either be accepted from a college, yay! You can be denied, which is a bummer, or you can be waitlisted. Now, if students are waitlisted, it means that the college has filled their seats, but they're not officially denying the student. There's still hope that there will be room in that class and that the student will be admitted at some point. So that's what a waitlist is all about. And students will be notified that they're waitlisted. They're typically, you don't really hear whether you come off the waitlist usually until June or July or August. Because what colleges do is they wait for everyone to deposit. On May 1st is National Deposit Day. And that's when everyone has to kind of make that final decision of where they're going to go. and they send their deposit into that one college that they're going to go. So after colleges receive those deposits, they know who's coming, who's not coming, then they'll move to the wait list, and they'll start offering admission to some of the students on the wait list, okay? So the problem with that is you can't assume you're ever going to come off the wait list. So you do need to deposit at one of the schools that you were accepted to by May 1st. If you do come off the wait list, it could be June, July, or August, okay? So that's fine, but the thing to remember, if you are waitlisted, by the time you come off, typically the financial aid monies, and certainly the merit monies, have all been allocated. So if you're coming off the wait list, you should be aware that it really is just going to be student loans, and in some cases work study for the most part. You're not going to get a lot of financial aid if you're coming off the wait list because of the timing. So that's very important to know. You might be waiting for your dream school to admit you off the wait list, and if that's it, great, but just know that the funding sources are going to be a lot less, typically speaking, coming off the wait list. I hope that makes sense to everyone. All right. Okay, so just a few words about financial aid, because I know this is important. The school does do a financial aid night for senior parents very early in the fall, and somebody from MIFA will come out and talk with you in great detail about the financial aid process, funding sources, how decisions are made, timing, as it all relates to financial aid. But I'd like to give you a little bit tonight, just for fun. So certainly there is a lot of financial aid available. Financial aid is available from the Federal Department of Education, from our Massachusetts State Department of Education, certainly from colleges and universities. There's both grant funding, and there's also merit scholarships from many colleges, not all, but many colleges. So lots of different funding sources out there to help you cover the cost of college. For the current juniors, now who's juniors? Pretty much everyone? Okay, some younger, sophomores? Okay, so for families that have current juniors, the financial aid process is actually going to occur earlier next year. So for those who have friends that have current seniors, you probably know that they're doing their financial aid applications now in the month of January. Okay, that's how the process works now. You do it in January, you make all these updates and all that good stuff. Current juniors, so class of 2017, you will complete your free application for federal student aid or FAFSA in October of this year, okay? And it's gonna look at your 2015 income. So the good news is, when you do your financial aid applications in October, you'll have your real tax return information to refer to, okay? So in the fall, aside from your student being very busy doing their admissions applications, you'll start applying for financial aid. So you'll do the free application for federal student aid, which is a federal form, which allows colleges to determine eligibility for student loans, work study, federal grants, and in many cases their own money, okay? There's an additional form called the CSS profile form that will also be available in October, and that is used by about 275 selective private colleges in the country, okay? So if your child does apply to any private colleges, then just be sure you check the College Board website for a list of the colleges that require the CSS profile form, okay? If they do, then you'll be doing 2 financial aid forms in October, the FAFSA as well as the CSS profile, okay? A lot of similar information are on both forms. CSS profile asks additional questions beyond the FAFSA, but they both will ask you information about your family income, some of your assets, your household size, the number of students in college, things like that, and then make a determination about your eligibility, okay? So lots of aid out there for sure. Everyone should complete the financial aid process because you never know what you'll be eligible for. And if you want your child to have access to federal student loans, federal work programs, things like that, then you need to have that FAFSA on file, okay? So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Just want people to be very aware that there are a lot of aid sources out there, and that you really kind of have to be doing that process the same time that your child is doing the admissions process. Okay, you can't wait until they're done with their apps to apply. You kind of have to do it simultaneously. It can be a little overwhelming, but you'll get through it. Okay? Other things that your student can do is they can start thinking about outside scholarships, and those come from foundations, corporations, nonprofit entities. It's a great time to start looking in the junior year because it is a lot of work to apply for scholarships. We recommend on the MIFA website, they have a scholarship page. You can go there and click on that for information. You can also link to a website I'll suggest, scholarships.com. It's easy to remember, scholarships.com, where your child can go in and answer a series of questions, develop a profile for themselves, and they get matched with a list of scholarships that they can apply for, okay? Definitely another thing you want to think about early. You can't wait until you've been accepted to the colleges to apply for scholarships. It kind of happens all at the same time. So that's something else that your child can do. The other thing to be aware of is, in our last bullet here, need-based versus merit-based. For need-based aid, I just described that process to you, the FAFSA, the CSS profile. You do it in October. As far as merit scholarships go, that's where the list of colleges that your child kind of decides to apply to becomes very important. You want to have a well-rounded list of scholarships, colleges, if you are truly trying to strategize and place yourself, for merit scholarships. Applying to 8 Ivy League colleges isn't going to get you any merit scholarships, right? Because Ivy League colleges don't have merit scholarships, right? So merit scholarships are given to students because of some merit. Usually their GPA and test score combination will oftentimes get them a merit scholarship, but they have merit scholarships for many reasons. Students have many talents, whether it's science or dance or art or music or high academics, whatever it is. Many different colleges have merit scholarships. More do have them than don't. Certainly Ivy League schools do not have merit scholarships, nor do very highly selective colleges, like your MITs, your Tufts. They don't have merit scholarships, okay? The majority do. So just make sure when your child's developing their list, they use that Naviance tool and they have a wide selection of colleges that they're applying to. Challenging, just right target schools, and also no problem kind of foundation schools, okay? Because you'll find that the schools, those no problem and those target schools, those are the ones that have the merit scholarships typically, okay? Because they're looking to get students with high academic qualifications to come to their school. They're used as recruitment tools, okay? So very important to have a very well-rounded list. If you want to have 8 Ivy Leagues on your list, fine. But just to make sure you have 8 that are no problem and just right as well. You get my point. A balanced list is what's very important, okay? Especially if you're cost conscious and you're looking for your child to get some sort of merit scholarship. Okay? All right. Okay, a few things to think about now. Certainly, spring is almost here, hopefully. Attending college fairs, I gave you that information. That will be very important to do as you can. Get out and visit campuses, whether it's February vacation week, April vacation week, or early summer. Just a reminder to identify those teachers, to ask for letters of recommendation, ask 2 teachers, and of course your guidance counselor will typically do one for you as well. You heard the essay topics. Just keep your ears and eyes open for the new prompts coming out from Common Application. You've got the information about SAT or ACT. I would register for at least one at minimum during this semester. And then the outside scholarships that I mentioned, using scholarships.com or in Naviance. Typically the guidance department will also put locally or regionally based scholarships in there, yes. So use Naviance as probably your first point of contact for outside scholarship research as well. And then senior year, students will finalize that college list. take the SAT or ACT again if they need to, pick up those letters of recommendation or make sure that they've been uploaded through the Common Application. MIFA will come out in the fall at some point, like they usually do, and do a financial aid night, which really gets into the nitty-gritties of how financial aid is determined. And then certainly the rest of this timeline, just waiting for applications, finishing your financial aid applications. On this slide, it's still listed as winter of senior year. That's because the timing process just literally changed. So again, you'll be doing it in October. You won't be waiting until winter for your financial aid applications. And then spring of senior year, it's a very fun time. You'll deposit on May 1st, and then after that, start planning on paying the college bill. So that's kind of how the timeline works. Here are some great planning resources. Net price calculators. Let me just mention this. This relates to college financing, okay? A net price calculator is available to you on every single college website. And basically what it is, it's a way for families to plug in their information, so maybe their AGI from their tax return, as well as some of their asset information, and it will actually give you an idea of what you can expect to receive in financial aid for your child, okay? So for those of you who want to plan ahead and get a sense of what you might get from colleges, I can't recommend enough going to each of the colleges' websites that your child is seriously looking at and go to the net price calculator. You'll key in your information. Schools that do offer merit scholarships will oftentimes ask for your child's GPA and test score as well. And then the output will include an estimation of what the child would receive in merit as well as need-based financial aid funds. So it's a great planning tool for families who don't want to wait until the fall when they actually apply. So I can't recommend that enough. College Navigator and College Scorecard are awesome websites just for statistics and things like that. You can look up every single college in the country. It will tell you their retention rates, graduation rates, which is a very important statistic for most parents. It will also tell you information about the class that's there, average GPA, average test score, and things like that. Okay, so great just for doing some research to getting an idea of what the colleges are all about. Okay, so I will take questions, certainly. If you have to leave, then the only thing I ask is that you complete the very short evaluation form that you would have picked up on the way in. I will remind you that if you want to sign up for the MIFA educational email service, all you have to do is put your email at the top. They do not share information, they don't sell it, they don't share it at all. The educational emails only come out about once every 3 weeks, so they don't spam you, it's not every day, I promise. I'm on there as well for each of my 3 kids, and I only get one about every 3 weeks. And it's always educational, pertinent information that's useful to you as parents wherever you are in the process. Okay.